Welcome in everyone to HogvilleNET YouTube Live. I'm Kevin McPherson. This is going to be a recruiting segment. It's really good vibes right now in the Arkansas Razorbacks men's basketball program. After a slow start to the season and a really good early signing period in recruiting, but a slow start to the actual season, Arkansas has won 3 games in a row, 2 of those away from home against high major opponents and marquee kind of games. Miami Hurricanes got that started. Even though that's not a good team, 7 straight losses right now. You had to find a way to win that game. Arkansas, with its best win of the season, its only quad one win, and the kind of game that can kind of get things going in the right direction as Arkansas gets all hands on deck. You could really see the frontline presence now with Jonas Adu and Trevor Brazil. But this is going to be a recruiting segment. At the end of it, I'm going to give just a little bit more on the Hogs' current win streak. Look ahead to Arkansas's UCA game against UCA, second in-state D1 foe on Saturday, and talk a little bit about that. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time today, but let's get into recruiting. That's what we came here for. Arkansas already has a top 5 ranked recruiting class when you look at the various services with the work they did in the early period. We've talked about it so much. 2 top 7 rated guards when you look around the country, top 7 ranked nationally. Both of them 5 stars, Darius Acuff Jr., Malik Thomas, lead guard, shooting guard, and then ESPN national top 50-ish, Isaiah Seeley, in-state kid from Springdale, a 6'7" combo guard, wing. So 1, 2, and 3, when you look at it kind of positionally, Arkansas's got the best backcourt recruiting class from the high school ranks in 2025. That's the work that was done through the early November signing period, which was basically a week long in November, so nearly a month ago. But there's some interesting things here. We've talked about a lot about some of this as Arkansas looks to add to this 2025 class, especially when you start talking about frontline. Class of 2025, Muhammed Sila is a guy we've talked about. We're going to talk a little bit more about him. There's some other names in terms of guys that have already visited Arkansas. When we talk about Mika Murnin, at least one player there who's class of 2026, but strongly considering a reclass to 2025. We could find out about that here over the holiday break in terms of a decision. A signing wouldn't happen until the spring, or it may be the spring, which is typically what happens in these reclass situations, going from junior to senior. We might learn about something like that in the spring. But really a name we've talked about, but not as much lately, but we keep it out. We keep it in the headline. When I do my recruiting articles, I still mention Nate Ament, and there's a reason for that. I was actually going to talk recruiting Tuesday night. I on my my tweet talking about my upcoming segment for the post-game, in-game and post-game against Michigan. We were also going to talk about recruiting, but that game was so wild and it was so important that I focused nearly an hour just on the game and put off the recruiting part. And I'm glad I did. That was Tuesday night, couple of days ago. And the reason I'm glad I did is I was going to talk about some new intel, nothing significantly big, but important when you talk about the process of recruiting. And we know once you make offers, then it becomes visits. And that was what we're going to talk about with Nate Ament, national top 5, fourth ranked, third ranked in some services. So a top 5 guy nationally, a 6'9" combo forward. I'm going to call him a 3-4. He'll probably be predominantly a 3 at the pro level, at the NBA level, but a guy that can, and then maybe in small ball lineups, even at that level, play the 4. I think in college he'll slot 3-4, not the same as an Adu Thero kind of 3-4, a more finesse, skilled type of player, but at 6'9" can bring you some versatility, and you can really call him part of your front court. Now we know several things here with Nate Ament. And one of the reasons I'm glad I waited till today to talk recruiting is because we just learned a few hours ago that Calipari was back in Virginia on Wednesday to visit Ament when the current NCAA recruiting period opened up on September 4th. So it's been a while. Calipari's been all over the country to go visit players. Typically, we know it's 5-star guys or top 50 guys if they're not 5 stars. A few of those sprinkled in, peppered in there. But Nate Ament was one of those names, and I was the first to report back a couple of months ago on the first time that Calipari was out to see him. And it was pretty soon after that he was back out again, and then again. And we got to a point where we knew he'd been out there at least 4 times. Well, it came out a few hours ago from Joe Tipton at On3 Sports, does a great job, obviously, covering recruiting, that Calipari was back out on Wednesday. So it's been at least, by my count, 5 times that Calipari's been out to see him. Well, what I was going to talk about on Tuesday is I spoke with one of my sources who's got NBA, basically connected more to NBA stuff than the college game, reached out to me several days ago prior to Monday. I think it was over the weekend, I think Sunday, and asking me what for which Razorback game was Nate Ament coming to visit, because he heard he was coming in for a Razorback game, and did I know which one yet? Well, I've kind of known these things going through some of these other recruits. On this one, I don't have any specific information on which game it is. I've looked at the schedule. Obviously, there's a couple opportunities this month against North Carolina A&T and Oakland to round out December, but I really believe it's going to be during conference play and one of these more prestigious type games where you'd want to have a recruit on campus. And if you look ahead to what Arkansas's got incoming, you start thinking about recruits. Typically, it's weekend, but it's not necessarily the case during basketball season. It's going to also depend on the player schedule and their high school season and when they can get things fitted in. But the best opportunities for a big time kind of atmosphere, because you want to bring players in during the SEC games. We've seen how it is during November and December against some of these mid-major or low-major Division I schools. It's not a packed house, so you want your best foot forward as a program. And so when I look ahead, you've got early home game in your first three games at home. You've got a Saturday game against Florida. Later in the month, much later in or a little ways down in the month of January, you're going to host Oklahoma, undefeated still and a ranked team right now. The big game is early February, February 8th. You're going to host, it's a Saturday. You're going to host Alabama. That would be a big time atmosphere. They're all going to be good atmospheres. I think that one will have more significance. Later that month, you host Texas, a team that was ranked, hasn't had some losses, not ranked. It's still going to be one of those situations. It's Texas and Arkansas, so you're going to have a different kind of vibe in the building. You should. And of course, March, I think Arkansas has one game at home in March against Mississippi State, even though it's a ranked team. I doubt it goes that far before you get Nate and men on campus. But so cobbled together with the fact that Calipari continues to go and see Ament off campus, going back again when the current recruiting period opened up on September 4th, at least five times, and the fact there's been more and more momentum swirling that Arkansas is going to get a visit, including one of my NBA sources asking me which game it is, because he's heard that he's coming to attend for a visit during, and going to attend a Razorback game. He just doesn't know which one. And so I'm trying to get him to circle back to where he heard that from to see if get more information. I've got my feelers out a little bit more. I didn't want to hold off on this anymore because I wanted to share at least that part with you Tuesday, and we didn't get that done. So that's out there. I just kind of went through some of the playing dates. Now, Arkansas also hosts some games. Ole Miss, for example, will be a midweek game after Arkansas opens at Tennessee, so an early January game. There's other midweek games that Arkansas will host at Bud Walton Arena in SEC play. And sometimes players have to work out their visit schedules, again, around their basketball season. And a lot of times players, you think the weekend's the easiest for travel because school's out, and sometimes that's true. But sometimes they make it happen during the week because that's all they can do because of their own games that don't allow them to get away. So it could end up being maybe a midweek. I haven't ruled out that it would happen in this month with a couple of home dates coming up. I just don't think it'll be that way. I really believe it's going to be a marquee kind of game. It makes sense to me. Duke has been thought for a while to be the front runner. Another five-star wing, Sheldon Henderson, is tight. He's buddies with Ament. They've talked about playing together. Henderson's already committed to Duke. Duke has the number one ranked recruiting class when you look at the Boozer twins. When you look at Henderson, Ament would be another nugget there. Texas and Tennessee have been involved. Other schools he's taken visits. There's been some thought for a while that maybe this comes down to a trio of Arkansas, Duke, and Louisville. I think it's probably more likely Duke and Arkansas right now, just based on little conversations I have with other people that cover recruiting behind the scenes. But everybody still feels like Duke's probably the front runner there. But again, I go back to the fact that Calipari does not waste his time on players that aren't serious. You can make a counterpoint. Well, what about Caleb Wilson? Well, it got to a point with Arkansas and Caleb Wilson where visits that were scheduled and were thought to, be in the works to actually happen never did. And Arkansas moved away. I came on here and reported this. They just moved away because they didn't want to be in what became a real leverage game with NIL that may still be going on. right now. And it may be, obviously, it seems like it's a Kentucky, North Carolina thing. It's kind of been that for a while. But Arkansas, Calipari got up to a point I see where he felt like he had a serious shot at it, but did not want to get in a leverage game because Arkansas's not good. There's only so far the Razorbacks are willing to go with NIL on any certain player. They have valuation limits or ranges, and there is some negotiating wiggle room on some of that. But things play out, and you start to understand whether you get it directly from someone or just seeing how maybe you're being slow played or whatever the scenario is, where you don't want to be in that situation anymore, regardless of what that player can bring to the table. So the fact that Calipari continues to pursue a mint and the recent visit on December 1st from Muhammed Sila, whose name we mentioned, also class of 2025, technically a 4-star, but On3 has him, Sports has him as the number 1 center in the country and a 13th ranked overall player. So they have him as a 4-star, but that's really, knocking on 5-star status. 247 Sports has had Silla ranked 30th, a 6'10 center from Dakar, playing at Bella Vista Prep out in Arizona. Took that December 1 visit. He's a guy that could be making a decision soon, I'm told. There's some thought, I had one source that thought maybe Arkansas is in the lead there, that Kansas had backed off. Those are 2 of his top 5, along with Georgia Tech, Washington, and Oregon. He's taken all those visits, Arkansas being the last. And then we've had this dynamic with the early signing period. We just found out, I think, was it this week or over the weekend, but just in the last few days, that the number 1 player in the class of 2025, AJ DeBonsa, not only made his decision, but he'd already done his paperwork back in that early period. Remember, Chris Sinak made his announcement to Houston a week after the period ended, a top 10 rated 5-star who had taken all his visits. And he had already actually officially signed and just they delayed the announcement so that he could make his public announcement, at a later date than the actual timing of when the commitment and the actual signing happened. AJ DeBonsa even later. And I've thrown around these scenarios with Silla. Could it be a deal where he's already done the paperwork with Arkansas and took that visit, and it's now just a matter of timing of how he wants that to come out? Could he be an early graduation and come in and join the team at semester? These are things I don't have any insight that those things might be possibilities, but I thought the timing of the visit was weird, especially that it was on a Sunday when Arkansas was getting ready to travel to Miami the following day, and you didn't have that kind of expanded visit window. There was a similar setup with Shauna Baev back in October, who Arkansas moved away from, similar to Caleb Wilson around the same time. He ended up committing to Cincinnati, but that visit was worked in the way it was because of all the weather issues, all the hurricane stuff going on in the state of Florida, where he resided in the Fort Lauderdale area. But the timing with Silla was a little bit interesting to me based on how recent the early signing period was, the fact that you're getting near maybe a potential semester decision, and could he have done paperwork already, or again, going to graduate early, make a decision, come on, or maybe he makes a decision soon or not soon, and it's still a spring signing. But Arkansas is in great shape there. It also tells you that Calipari's continued talking points, that he's going to take 3 or 4. We know Arkansas's already got 3. We went through those 3. Best backcourt in the country in the high school recruiting for 2025. It's already done. They're all signed. And they're still going out to see players for 25. Still having them in for visits in the terms of Silla and Ament. Getting back to Ament. So I'm talking Silla and Ament because I've said over and over again, I think Arkansas needs to really consider Calipari expanding his 4 that he's going to take every class from the high school ranks, expanding a top 9 rotation overall when you throw in player retention and actual portal recruiting once the spring rolls around. Maybe expand that from 9 to 10 or 11, and it would allow you to go from 4 high school guys to 5. There's also something interesting here. I've said over and over again, a guy like Isaiah Seeley out of Springdale, he's good enough potentially to be a guy that factors into what you're doing next year in your top 9 rotation if you stayed with 9. But he's also a guy that's not on a fast track like the guys like these 5-star McDonald's All-American types that we've seen. Boogie Flam being an example. Obviously, guys like Darius Acuff and Malik Thomas would be examples of players that are really looking for a one-and-done scenario, Calipari being the best of that. I don't think the front-end plan and the conversations with him and his family and Arkansas's coaching staff has that built in. I think it's more of a longer term development and situation. So he may be good enough where he steps in and has that kind of freshman season, which is great. But if not, I don't think that's the initial target where it becomes a problem for you bringing in other players. And in terms of what his expectations are in his first season, I think the expectations are at minimum a 2-year situation and maybe more. Not that he couldn't help you next year, but he might be on the one of those great problems to have. If it works out where he's that guy, great, that helps you even more. If not, it was always the plan. It took me a while to spit all that out to say I think, even though Arkansas has already got 3 of a so-called 4, what Calipari was going to cap at 4, one of those may be a more longer-term deal where you're really at 2 guys that impact, initially you envision impacting your rotation next year. So if you expand from 9 to 10 or 11, and you've only got 2 on board so far that are for sure envisioned to be in your top rotation, that means you could add 2 more to get to that 4, and then a total of 5, including Sealy, and you see what happens with Sealy moving forward, and it fits into this idea I have. And why am I saying Calipari should switch already? This thought. Because Arkansas's attrition, we're still feeling it. Arkansas is on a streak right now, but they haven't been full go. I mean, Avicic, Big Z, was holding down the fort on the front line. Now he's the guy that's not been, 100%. Even though you've gotten Adu back and Jonas Adu back and Trevor Brazil back. And in the last game alone, you had Adu Theo dealing with illness. He played. He gave Arkansas 21 minutes. Calipari said they were going to try to get 10, and he stretched it to 21. But you could see the usage of him was much different in terms of when he came in. He did start, but how quickly they got him out and how they used him. And so when you're only 8 or 9 deep, there's all kinds of stuff that conspires against you being your best, having the matchups you want. That's why when I get back to this recruiting part, I want to continue to beat the drum of maybe expanding what you're going to do there. You could go to 5, and now we're back talking about Sila and Ament being perfect, because not knowing exactly what Sealy is going to give you in year 1 and what the expectations will be out of the gates for guys like Acuff and Malik Thomas being plugged into that top rotation, it's almost no-brainer like a Bookie Flan and even Carter Knox and Billy Richmond. They've played every game. They're part of what Arkansas is doing right now. But going back to that, you've got 1 and 2, Sealy not knowing which way's a 3, Nate Ament's a 3-4, and can give you, can be on the court with those guys at the same time. And even Silla at your center, he's more of a traditional 5. He's really quick and light on. He's long strider, a high motor. He's one of those gets out of his areas to make a play guys, above the rim protector. So if you were to, when you look at it, it makes sense. Even with those 5, if you didn't have any other players, you could put those 5 on the court together, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in more ways than one, attrition, the positional value, and the talent value, because at some point you've got a chance here, as right now, having again the best recruited backcourt in the country in terms of how, just looking at it from recruiting rankings, that alone has got Arkansas right now overall top 5 in all these services in recruiting rankings. I'm not saying Arkansas would finish number 1, but if you were able to get a Nate Ament and a Muhammed Sila and end up with a 5-player class, there's potential there that you're not only in the top 2 or 3 in recruiting in the country, but you've got a even stronger claim that you've got the best overall class right now. Again, best backcourt class and a top 5 class overall. So I think it helps Arkansas in many ways maybe to look at it that way. And what do we see? We see Calipari pursuing Silla. And had him on campus. We see Calipari still pursuing Ament. So the things I'm suggesting are not far-fetched, because I think the head coach is sort of telegraphing that maybe that's where he's headed with this. I don't think it's an either or with those guys. I think Arkansas would try to get both Silla and Ament. Put it another way, I think that's where that's probably headed. Mika Murinen, I don't think he's a backup plan, but I certainly believe that he's a guy that it could be an either or with him and Ament. And so you're going to pursue both. just like you pursued multiple guys at similar positions throughout this recruiting process before you really narrowed down and zeroed in on guys. That's just how recruiting works. It's how it works with Calipari at the highest level. And the highest levels as he moves forward at Arkansas. We've seen that when he said he's just moving the headquarters, that wasn't just, word salad. I mean, he's kind of proven that, right? And so it's still a process. Again, Duke may be the front runner for him, but I fully expect there to be a visit. I don't know when that'll be announced. But again, with the intel I got from an NBA connection saying he's coming, but when is it? We're trying to figure that out. Calipari back on campus for at least a fifth time since early September, out in Virginia. And what a way to walk into the doors to greet Amen on a Wednesday. Guess what? Last night, did you watch that game in the Big Apple? We just won a marquee game, a quad one win game. And you see my young guys, my first recruited class at Arkansas. It's basically a brand new roster, right? Guys Cal brought in, Trevor Brazil, bless his physical playing heart from Tuesday night, being the lone exception who's returned to Arkansas. And even he had to be recruited by Calipari because, remember, he was in the portal and going through the NBA draft combine and the pro process. So even that was a recruit. Wasn't a full picture of a retained player coming back. So you can sell that to guys like Nate Ament. You could sell some of these successes. Again, Arkansas, a lot of Calipari, he's a lightning rod. He always has been for some national banner because of all the success and some of the drama surrounding him. So he's one of those guys, as great as he's been, a Hall of Fame guy. There's another side of that where there's criticism, some of it fair, some of it crazy. There's Big Blue Nation fever still over him, despite how good that team is right now, ranked top 5 in the country. We'll see what plays out. But Arkansas's back in the conversation as one of those teams in an insanely great SEC. I don't think I've ever, all my years, going back to Arkansas' success in the mid-90s, late 80s, early 90s, mid-90s under Nolan, the league was pretty good back then. You had other teams going to title games or Final Fours in that stretch, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Florida, in that pocket of time. So it was really good at the top, pretty good through the middle. The last few years, it's just been ramping up. But this year may be the best it's ever been. Lenardi has 12 teams projected in his most recent bracketology. That's significant. Arkansas on the last 4 in a play-in 11 seed. That win over Michigan's huge. We're going to again talk a little bit more about what's upcoming. But that win over Michigan's huge, and it's huge in recruiting because Arkansas has won 3 in a row, 2 away from home. And so Calipari can say, I've got good players coming in. You see what I've already done in this high school class. I'm going to get you some help and support in portal season. We're going to bring maybe a couple back, but we still need you, Nate Ament. We need you, Muhammed Sila. You see, we're shorthanded on the front line. We need someone that can step in and do and help us there. You may be playing year one. Nate Ament certainly will be. But again, I also look at Sila as a guy that fits what Calipari likes in his 5-spot recruiting. He's not really looking for a stretch 5. He's looking for someone that's going to defend the rim, alter shots, block shots. Get it, guys that are athletic and long that can get out of their area to make plays. Arkansas has been a decent rebounding team, I think, but the kind of players Calipari likes to identify on the front line. Part of that is he wants to not only be good in transition, which his best teams always have been, but they've also been really strong in the rebounding department. This Arkansas team's not quite there, but they've been a long time. Remember without Adu and Brazil, but Sila's the kind of guy that's just that next kind of Cal guy at the 5 spot. And Nate Ament, man, this guy, I've compared him to Michael Porter Jr., Will Riley at Illinois is maybe a comparison there. But gosh, this guy is just a smart, skilled, an elite 3-point shooter at 6'9", a wonderful decision maker in 2-man game because he's not just a pop guy that's going to catch and get a good shot off and use that length even if there's a good closeout. He'll make reads as a ball handler off 2-man game. He can create a shot off that with the ball in his hands or get into a drive. He needs to get stronger, Ament, but the 3rd, 4th rated guy, a 5-star, when I covered him back in Texas back in May, and I interviewed him. He talked about Arkansas, the new staff. Calipari was out there to watch him. Bruiser Flint was out there watching him. And he talked about having interest in Arkansas, but he was ranked outside the top 15, like 18th. He was a 5-star, and I remember saying at the time, there's not 10 players better than this guy. They're just not in the country. And the more I watched him, the more I felt like, he's a surefire top 10 guy. And sure enough, he's actually a top 5 player. He's moved into the top 5 in the rankings. It's been like that for a while. So Nate Ament, no intel on, where things truly stand with Arkansas, other than I do believe, based on conversations I've had for a while, that Arkansas is in the top 2 or 3. Duke may be the front runner. But again, Calipari doesn't necessarily see it that way with all the time he's invested. I think Calipari believes that he'll get it done. When I continue to see over weeks and weeks and weeks the trips he's made, that he's got a belief that he can get this guy on campus and then seal the deal. Now, that doesn't mean that Nate Ament's going to follow through. We don't have a public announcement of a visit yet. And we've seen, even with Calipari, what happened with Caleb Wilson. That's a different player, a different scenario. There was a Rich Paul / Clutch Sports thing going on there. So we don't know with Nate Ament what other factors might play into where Arkansas or he gets to a point where this won't happen. But there's a huge momentum for it. Again, recent conversations I've had, people saying there's a visit upcoming. When is it? Then this news today that Calipari was back out there. And if you look at the patterns with everybody else that has made it to campus, it's been kind of that. Calipari doesn't waste his time on guys he's not bringing in. And there's only been one exception. That was Caleb Wilson. Everybody else, it's worked out that way. Yes, Sanak went on to Houston. Abayev, Arkansas moved on from him. And then he ends up signing with Cincinnati, or committing and signing with Cincinnati. All right, 26 minutes in, we're going to wrap up the recruiting part. Just to kind of encapsulate everything. Nate Ament is front and center right now. We should, at some point, I think, hear about a visit date as Arkansas pursues another top 5 rated guy nationally, and a front line piece. And with the way I see it, as he'll play in college, Muhammed Sila, I think Arkansas is right there, if not at the top, certainly. And he's got him in his top 5. But I think Arkansas very well could be the leader right now. I don't have a feeling that he ends up committing to Arkansas, has already done something. I don't have any intel on that. I don't even have a feeling that it's going to happen. But I do have a feeling that if Arkansas is not the front runner, they may end up being. Put it that way. Georgia Tech's one I've been told to keep an eye on. I was told Kansas backed off. You know how things change in recruiting. If Kansas changed its mind, then that might change dynamics there. But Arkansas is right there with both of those players, the way I see it. And so I think Calipari's trying to get to 5 players overall. Roster attrition we've seen already makes that make sense to me, for him to expand from a 4 to 5 from the high school ranks. And the thought that maybe Seeley's a guy that's a little longer term in terms of how many true freshmen did you really plan to use next year in your top 2 rotations? Not to rule out Seeley. It's to say that Arkansas's got some flexibility how it approaches this. All right, let's get into some other things real quick. Arkansas's next game is not at home. It'll be counted as a home game by NCAA.net algorithms as they factor in your strength of record, games away from home, which include true road, neutral site games, and home games. Well, North Little Rock, Simmons Bank Arena, Arkansas plays there once a year. You know that. During December, you know that. You know it's non-conference, and you know that it's always counted as a home game. UCA is the first time I know of that Arkansas is playing an in-state Division I here in Central Arkansas. It's certainly been in the modern era when they started playing at the arena, which was at first Alltel, then Verizon, and now it's Simmons Bank Arena. But this will be the first in-state Division I foe. It's UCA. UCA's campus is in Conway, which is 30 minutes outside of Little Rock. It's actually closer than Fayetteville, but I'm told this will still count as a home game for Arkansas. So it's a home game, but it's actually, it's a neutral site game in terms of you're not playing at Bud Walton Arena. You go back to TCU, a true road game in exhibition season. You've had 3 neutral site games so far: Dallas, Kansas City, New York City. You've had a true road game at Miami. This is another, you're not really in your home house playing a game. Now, this is not a good UCA team. I didn't go through all that to try to set it up like this makes the stakes higher. It's more about Arkansas's had back-to-back games away from home when you looked at Illinois and Miami, and now they're having back-to-back games away from home. So there are some qualities about once you get into SEC play and you have back-to-back road games where you've kind of simulated some of that, not being in your own house, having to travel a little bit, do something a little bit different on game day. So there may be some continuity there. That's where I was going with that. because there's not much to say about UCA other than there are some interesting storylines. Lane Taylor out of Farmington, one of my favorite players the last 4 years to cover, went forever without a D1 offer. The Purdue coaches, their entire staff, Matt Painter, every spring and summer when he was playing with in the spring and summer when he played with the Arkansas Hawks, every session, I would see the entire staff come to watch the Hawks. And I assumed it was to watch Honor Boateng, a top 35 player. And they were telling me, we're here to see Lane Taylor out of Farmington. They never offered him. He started to pick up some D1 offers. He ended up committing to North Texas. There was a coaching change there. You had a coaching change at UCA. You also had, interestingly enough, Ty Robinson, also from the class of 2025 out of Lake Hamilton, a 6'4", 6'5" guard who's just another wonderful player that probably didn't get enough recruiting attention in state for the longest, but ended up signing with Dusty May in Florida Atlantic, a team that was coming off a Final Four. Signing with that team, and then Dusty May leaves for Michigan, who Arkansas just played. We saw that. So now Ty Robinson's been injured. He only played, I think, 2 or 3 games early for UCA. I'm not sure of a return for him. But Lane Taylor leads UCA. He ended up at UCA. Those guys had played together in the AAO flight spring and summer programs in their last spring and summer, and they want to play together in college. So they end up transferring or getting out of their letters of intent from North Texas with Taylor, Florida Atlantic with Robinson, and at UCA. So Robinson out. Taylor's leading UCA in three-point shooting. He's also a really good passer, but it's a team that's really struggling right now with more injuries. Jabari West Jr., who was at George Washington, transferred to UCA previously from Hot Springs, a player that's injured and been out. They've had some other guys out. They've got a couple of really good pieces to what the new coaching staff, John Schulman's trying to put together and string together as that program moves forward. But 2 back-to-back losses. I was there for the loss at Little Rock last week. The Trojans at home. UCA was a tight game, and Little Rock ended up winning that game, pulling it out. And then UCA on the road at Arkansas Pine Bluff. Pine Bluff doesn't play very many home games in November and December. They go get those paychecks and play tough games. I think UAPB's got a game at Texas upcoming. They've already played several high majors, but UAPB, Arkansas Pine Bluff, defeated UCA last weekend. So this is now a UCA team coming in, I think, with only 2 wins so far, maybe 2 or 3 wins. I fully expect Arkansas to take care of business in North Little Rock. We know that can be a weird scenario for Arkansas at times. Mixed results, but a lot of tight games against mid-majors. So you just never know. But that game's on Saturday. I'll be there. And I'll leave you with this. I think Arkansas right now, we're really starting to see more and more of what this team can be. And I think it was just getting Jonas Adu back, getting Trevor Brazile to play maybe differently than he did. Even though he's had some outstanding games, there's been a lot more question marks with him because of injuries and just kind of disappearing into the background for so many stretches. You didn't know how much of that was injury or not being in the right role. But we're seeing more and more of him play with physicality in concert with Adu, doing more of the dirty work stuff that you didn't see consistently. The backcourt, even Nelly Davis hasn't broken out yet, really. He's playing better offensively. There's still not a volume there, but you're getting plenty of volume from Flynn, and all of a sudden DJ Wagner in second halves especially really starting to step up. So you're seeing more identity in the backcourt. And Nelly Davis, you continue to see, he's not one of those guys that if he's not scoring, he's giving you nothing. He rebounds. He fights for those 50-50 balls. We saw 2 big plays in the final minute. So this Arkansas team starting to really come together in terms of an identity and get more balance in the front court and in the back court. And so when this roster was assembled, back in the offseason and you got into June and July early work, limited practice stuff, they've always had some issues with guys being available. But the way it was put together, this is looking more like what was envisioned probably. And why we're seeing a team that was not a good team at all, really, I don't think, for 20 minutes against Miami, better second half. But that team was on such a skid and still is that you weren't sure where was the value and all that other than you had to find a way to win away from home. And you couldn't afford the quad 3 loss. So you had to win that game. That's actual progress. It helps the psyche if it doesn't help the resume other than avoiding a bad loss. You came home and you had struggles against Texas San Antonio, a team with 3 wins and 6 or whatever losses. You struggled in that game. and trailed at halftime. And not all hands on deck. Avicic was out. Adu had his biggest minutes. Some of the backcourt guys. Flan didn't have such a great game. Against Michigan, you for once didn't fall behind immediately and trail the entire time like you did against Baylor and Illinois and most of the Miami game. But after taking an 8-5 lead, you got kicked pretty hard. And once again, you were down by double digits, and it didn't look good, 26-12. I even tweeted, Arkansas looks inept right now. I said the neutral side Hogs are inept because that's what it had been. And then Arkansas makes a run in the last 6 minutes of the first half. It was a roller coaster. Got within 4. Huge run to open the second half. I think it was 11-0. And eventually Arkansas led by 18. It was a 33-point swing from being down 15 to leading by 18. And then another huge run for Michigan. I thought Arkansas really was playing not to lose, afraid of letting, it was one of those snatching the jaws of defeat or snatching defeat from the jaws of victory scenarios that you see, in football, prevent defense, whatever analogy you want to make. It just looked like, give Michigan some credit, but Arkansas was doing some stuff that even when it was struggling, it was almost getting in its own way too much at that point. Yet that team still made plays at the end. Trevor Brazile won it 4 at the foul line, not exactly sealing things. Trevor Brazile, that play he made in front of the basket on Vlad Golden, there's physicality involved. Usually when Brazile blocks shots, he's coming from the weak side. He'll sometimes block the guy's guard, but there's usually some space there. Because if guys get into him, he's kind of getting out of the way and he's not going in the right direction to then challenge his shot. But in this one, he stood his ground. He was right there. And as soon as Golden went up, and we saw that Danny Wolf to Golden around the basket resulted in so many dunks and layups. Not this time, right in front of the rim. Brazile goes up, blocks the shot, and then what does he do? He finished the play. He came down with a rebound with Wolverines on both sides of him, all around him, battling for that board. And he came down, got low enough to where he could secure the ball and draw a foul. Now, he didn't do well at the free throw line. I think that trip he made 1 of 2 to extend a 1-point lead to 2. We mentioned Nelly Davis, making those defensive plays late. That deflection he got on that backdoor cut saved Arkansas's butt. That's probably a layup and a tie game, and who knows what happens after that because things weren't really trending well. But Arkansas made plays even though there was a backslide in that down stretch. So anyway, to sum all that up, I think Arkansas now, UCA Saturday, we talked about that. Then it's North Carolina A&T a week later. 9 days after that, it's Oakland, a team I think Arkansas, you're not going to have it's not the first round of the NCAA tournament, Cal at Kentucky. Cal's going to get his revenge, I believe. Arkansas should win these next 3. You avoid bad losses in non-conference, moving into SEC play. You've proven you can beat a good team away from home. It wasn't a home win. It was a neutral site win over Michigan, and I think that's a good Michigan team. So you've got some confidence. But these next week, several days, from UCA to North Carolina A&T to Oakland, you can really work on a lot of things and figure out what you need to do to get everybody healthy. Because you're going to have a lot of time off between games against teams you should beat. So whatever you need to do to make tweaks to whatever, to getting guys healthy, all hands on deck, I think that it's not only about the psyche, but now it's about the physical part. And Arkansas really be fully prepared for an SEC run and not be the team we feared it might end up really struggling just over a week ago before Arkansas won at Miami to now really starting to see things start to come together. They've got to be consistent, though. Front court, back court, they need more consistency. Guys like Boogie Flan continue to get better. He's a star of the making. Adu Thero playing all first-team SEC level. And then, again, some of these other guys coming back into the fold. I'm going to be later today. I'm going to actually get on the road here in a little bit. I'm going to Jonesboro to cover the Arkansas State Red Wolves. Big win over a ranked Memphis team last weekend, which stood as the only quad 1 win among 5 Division I schools until Arkansas said, little brother, we're going to get that taken care of against Michigan. So I'm going to cover ASU. Saturday, I'll be covering Arkansas, UCA. Sunday, I'm going to cover the Little Rock Trojans at home. I've been to multiple games with the Trojans. It's here in town where I live. It'll be my second ASU game tonight. And then on Tuesday, UAPB has a rare home game in Pine Bluff, and I'm going to try to cover UAPB on Tuesday. So in a 6-day span starting today, I'm going to try to in-person cover all 5 Division I teams in the state. the fact that the Razorbacks play these schools now, not all of them yet, and when they've got one Saturday, I think it increases the visibility of some of these programs. And look, Arkansas State is not only projected by Lenardi in the dance, he's got them as with a decent seating relative to some of the other mid majors. I think ASU has a chance. They're projected to win their league. They'd probably have to win their conference tournament to get in. But and Little Rock was receiving Associated Press top 25 votes in the preseason before KK Robinson got hurt, and is also projected to win the OVC. We know the Hogs have already beaten the Trojans at home just a few weeks ago. So, I'm really trying to focus a little bit. Obviously, Arkansas front and center, the Razorbacks, but some of these other teams trying to put a little bit more coverage on that. Not only not necessarily promote the programs, that's part of it, but also for me to understand the culture of those programs. Because when you have coaches like Brian Hodgson, who came from Nate Oates' coaching tree at Alabama, having the success he's having in recruiting and now results with that big win over Memphis, that was the highest ranked team, the biggest win in ASU history. If you have to go back to the mid 80s and a win over a ranked Iowa team under Nelson Catalina, but he may not be there very long. So I want to kind of get a sense of that basketball culture. And you have former Hogs there. There's storylines everywhere. KK Robinson at Little Rock. Yeah, he's not playing this year. Last year, Mikkel Mitchell and one of the Mitchell twins and KK getting Little Rock to that OVC regular season title. They were both all conference. Joseph Pinion and Darian Ford now at Arkansas State. And Pinion had that huge game against Memphis, 22 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 block shots. There's a little bit of everything that goes against some of the narratives on Pinion. And really those narratives, I talked about some of it because some of it was valid, but the caveat I always gave was he had a significant knee injury in high school that I always thought he never looked quite the same in the next year or so of high school, followed by his time at Arkansas. Always felt like maybe mentally he wasn't fully over it. He looks different now to me. He looks different now to me in terms of how because he was always a little bit underrated athletically. He's got good size. And so to see the kind of game he had, that's great. But again, we focus on the Razorbacks here. We know that, but I just kind of want to give you an idea of the menu of games I'm going to be trying to go to here over the next few days. All right, we're going to sign off now. We didn't make it to 45 minutes. Thank you for joining me. This has been mostly a recruiting update as Calipari in Arkansas focus now on 5-star Native Mint. Don't forget about Mika Murinen, and we'll see how that plays out. Muhammed Sila, we know Arkansas has already got a top 5 ranked recruiting class. I look forward to the coverage against UCA, Arkansas, UCA, the Razorbacks' second game against in-state Division I foe on Saturday here in the 501. I always like these Central Arkansas games. It'll be the first time John Calipari has coached. He's coached a Memphis team in the NCAA tournament that was held, one of the regionals, part of a regional was held years ago after that arena opened. But this will be his first time to coach as an SEC coach, because all the years he was at Kentucky, they didn't play in Central Arkansas. And obviously he's in his first year as the head Hog. All right, signing off. Thanks again for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. Please hit like, share, subscribe, whatever the options are. If it's good, help us out with it. Thank you for being here. Till next time, which will be probably a post game on Saturday, Arkansas UCA. Until then, take care, and we'll see you then.